Hey everybody, we're going on tour. We're releasing an album April 19th. It's called Super Glue.
Listen to it. Please.
You'll probably like it. If you don't, it's cool. Listen to it once, at least. I mean, my gosh. And then we're going on tour. We start May 13th, and we're starting in Atlanta, and then we're ending in June 16th in the beautiful city of Little Rock, Arkansas. We'll put the dates here, maybe. Maybe not. We talked with our good buddy John Capeci today.
Beautiful.
He's
guy.
a beautiful, beautiful man. He's in a band called Nightly, and we really love Nightly. We've written several times with him. We wrote Don't Want to Be Your Friend and Nervous with him, and we have more songs that we've written with him that we're really excited about. We love him so much. We had a really good chat with him. So here you go. I'm Steven.
I'm Alan.
We're Joan, and you're listening to...
Live, laugh,
All right.
Hey, buddy. How are you?
Hey guys, you're
Hey.
looking very handsome today, as you always are.
I'm loving the sweater you got going on.
Thank you, I appreciate it. That's great.
how are you?
Yeah,
How's-
I have to say one thing too. One more thing about your handsomeness.
Okay.
Yeah, let's
I know that we did a show like a long time ago together, but I hadn't seen you guys in so long until you were in Nashville, and I was like, they're just so handsome in real life. even our manager was like, they're like pretty good looking guys. I was like, yeah, I know. I sort
That's
of
very
forgot.
sweet. That's a very nice way of saying we weren't handsome back then, and now all this you're like out of nowhere there.
I don't
They
know.
look
maybe
better.
You just aged well, like a fine wine.
Thanks, man. Well, we're in our 50s now, so it
Yeah.
helps to hear. Thank you, buddy. Man, that show, that was, what year was that? 18? 19?
It was a while ago. Yeah. It was. I think that might have been like our first Nashville headline show.
Oh,
I
for
want to
real?
say.
I think it was. Yeah. Man, that was forever ago. That was a good show. That was a really good show. I remember
It was super fun.
Yeah, I remember the sound. There was like a weird sound situation that day or something, but it all worked out, and it was a packed house, and I look fondly on
Yeah.
that show.
That venue is no longer a venue now, I think, but it was my favorite small room. But it's one of those things where you have to like have the right sound guy to work it.
Yeah.
The other thing I remember about that show is we were on a label at the time, and the show had sold out, so they like sent a film crew, spent a bunch of money to film it, and then like whoever they hired like didn't know what they were doing, and all of the files were corrupt. So we like didn't end up having any of that footage. It was just like a bunch of like static and blurry lights and stuff. We're like, sick.
Isn't that great?
That's perfect. That's perfect.
There's no better way
Yeah.
to tell that story. Wow.
They still make a first cut and everything. It's just like it's
No,
just
they did.
awful.
Well, the funny thing is they tried to like salvage it, and they're like, I mean, there was multiple cameras. Probably 3 people flew out from LA to do it.
Wow.
And I felt bad because I was really upset. But after like that passed, I was like, I felt bad for the people who did it, because it was like our digital person at the time, and it was like one of her first projects, and now she's like crushing it. She does like Olivia Rodrigo and all this stuff, but whoever she hired just did a terrible job. But they tried to do like an edit where it was just like this one camera angle and then like a few artsy shots that were like the blurry ones, and it just came out so bad. Like it was terrible.
They realized that their lenses were just fogged up. It was like permanent blur.
Well, they blamed it on like not knowing that we were gonna have lights or something.
Okay.
Like,
At
it's
a
like,
show.
Okay, do you expect us to play in the dark? Have you ever been to a show before?
That's so good.
So that was great.
That brings up an interesting question that I just thought of. Like, how are you with creative control and letting go of it? Because the label saying, you know, hey, we want to bring these people in. They're our people or whatever. And then just kind of being like, okay, we hope it's good kind of thing. Are you good with that? Are you like, do you hold that stuff tight? How is that for you?
It's changed. Like I feel like it's almost like come full circle in that in the beginning, because we're not with a label now. But at the time we were with Interscope, which is like one of the big daddies. And
Big
you
daddies, I like that.
You just think like when you sign to a label that they know how to do everything. Like this this is how bands blow up, is they sign to a label and then
Did you sign with
the
them
next day?
like pretty early on?
Yeah, it was right away. It was like our first song.
Oh wow.
Yeah. And so I think in the beginning I was a little bit, I mean, we were always a part of like the creative vision, all that stuff, but I don't know. They throw a lot of money at a lot of things. They'll do a photo shoot that costs 20 grand and then a video shoot that costs 60 grand, you know, like, and it's just crazy money. And before that, when we were kind of making all of the content for the first single, it was just us with our friends running and gunning.
Yeah.
And yeah, like I just found out very quickly that if you aren't in control, or at least having some sort of final cut, you know, say in it, then stuff can get off the rails really quick. And just because you throw money at something doesn't mean it's going to be good.
Right.
So then we just started hiring this one guy who's been with us now for a couple of years.
Is that Zach?
Named Zach. Yeah.
Cool.
Love his stuff.
Yeah, he's great. And so now we kind of do everything our way, regardless of who we're involved with. Because we've done different, like, either like brand things or private things where they'll want like their own guy, and we're still like, we can use them, but Zach's still going to kind of creative direct with us.
Yeah.
And then at first, I think I was really on top of Zach, just like knowing what I wanted, like making sure each shot is like written out beforehand. And I think with time, we still have creative meetings and kind of brainstorm what we want the general thing to be. And it's like, all right, is this going to be, you know, shot with more of a fisheye lens, like whatever. We'll have like that conversation. But now I've sort of like let go a little bit more, just because there are other people that can do certain things better than I or anyone in the band can.
Totally.
So there's certain things, like I still do most of the t-shirt designs and stuff. But I've been trying to do like to let go more of that. So it's kind of full circle, but now like I have somebody that I trust in that position, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, that's like so important to like find those people that like, even if you have to like make sure that your vision is like understood at the beginning, like he obviously knows exactly what you're going to want in the end, and like what you guys as artists like want for Nightly. So it's like having that person where you're not having to rack your brain all the time on like creative decisions and creative thoughts and all that stuff, and you can focus on the music more, and then you can have overall thoughts, you know, but being in the kind of minutia of everything, I feel like that's where, for me at least, it starts to drive me nuts, where I'm like, I like the control and I like the details, but then also whenever it's thinking about music and what the artistry needs to be, and then what every little detail of the video and like logistics and all that stuff, it like just builds up so much and just can drive you crazy really, really quick.
There's just like not enough time.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly it. It's a time thing. And I think the best, like some of the most successful people, like leaders or whatever, just are good at delegating. And that's never been my gut. So I've just tried to get better at like delegating things that people can do better, and not having to be like Mr. Control Freak over everything. And Zach does a great job, and we still talk a ton, and there's still a ton of communication, even in the actual, we just shot a video Friday. There's a ton of communication, especially that week leading up to it. And then while we're actually shooting, and there's, monitors that we're checking shots and stuff. But he did most of the legwork himself after the initial idea. So yeah. What about you guys? Do you guys have like one person, or is it like kind of you go to a few people?
Yeah, so visually, Steven's the guy. He does all the artwork, all the visual socials, all that. We brought on 2 people, one for like music videos and kind of creative direction on that stuff. Our buddy Brandon, who's been with us for
the whole album cycle for sure. So
Brandon's our Zach, essentially.
Cool.
with that stuff, and then actually,
And he's in Arkansas with you guys?
No, he's in Oklahoma actually.
Okay.
And he's done so much. He's done a ton of music videos, commercial work. He's kind of done the gamut. And then Jake Ruth, who is to our right, has come on to help us with all sorts of stuff, from socials, content, creative direction on the daily stuff too. Like, as a third party view, I'm not the visual guy. I have opinions, and if Steven's like, hey, A or B, which do you like better? I'm that guy. I'm like the editor of that, not physically editing, but just like or I'll have like the one decent idea on a music video to like change a scene, just to, like I'm that guy.
You're the taste guy.
Well, maybe, but with Steven being third party view over him, like what I've seen it be helpful for him to let go of some of that, kind of the same way you have, is exactly that. There's not enough time in the day for us to like write the song, produce the song, do the podcast, do the music video, have the 3 label calls that week. Like, it just starts stacking. And then on top of that, it's like your normal daily, we need to keep our fans engaged on socials, and we have a Discord now. Like, there's just 15 different gears and cogs moving at once. And it's like, okay, what's like the pecking order of importance that we need his brain on, and what's, let's go to the lower part of that totem pole. I've used a lot of analogies for this ladder, this metaphorical ladder here. But like, what's the lower stuff that can be kind of passed off, or maybe it's high level stuff, but it's like idea land, to where like having Jake's brain on, okay, how do we take this idea and really like make it better, to where Steven's not up till 11, like thinking through 15. Well, you still are, but that's just how you're wired. But, or Brandon, Brandon for a music video, let him just kind of take that creative direction. That in the last 2 years has been really helpful, because when we did our last EP cycle, High and By, that was a song a month for 8 months. And it was just like, it was we had to have it so scheduled out for those 8 months of just so we didn't get behind on a song. Like, vocals have to be done this day, so if the bridge isn't finished, it's gotta be finished, which was like healthy, because the boundaries helped us get stuff done, but it also can create stress. So after that, I think we kind of realized where our strengths were with time management and where they weren't, and then started delegating, kind of like you're talking about. And it's been mega helpful for us.
But the delegating thing is like exactly what like needed to happen. I think we just like had such a grip on it, and like found it so important as kind of like our identity as Joan. And was that your chair?
That's the chair. Oh, that's great.
He just slowly sinks.
I'm going to fall over at any moment. Anyway, continue.
But yeah, like there just gets to a point where it just becomes too much. And then I kept finding myself where I was just like, the reason I got into this, like wanted to do music in the first place, was like at the end of the day because of the music. And so like I found myself having to take up more brain space thinking about things that aren't the music, and
which are important things,
which are super important, but we knew people that we could pass it off to and could trust it with. And so we were just like, we need to do that. Why aren't we doing that? So that was really good for us. So I'm glad to hear it's working for you.
Are you an Illustrator guy or Photoshop?
I'm all Photoshop.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
I like see people work in Illustrator because Zach works in Illustrator, and I'm like, I should do that, but I'm just like, I don't have time to learn.
It's cleaner. It's cleaner, but it's, in my opinion, I'm just like, it's not worth it, you know?
It's like the Logic Pro Tools. It's like,
Yeah.
I grew up on Pro Tools,
yeah.
and I can edit faster in it, but I love creating in Logic, and I'll take the learning curve of editing all day long and take another 3 hours on a session just because I'm more comfy, you know. So
Yeah.
which is annoying. But do you? I guess a follow up on that with the attention economy we live in now, where essentially the artist, you know, I feel like when we were coming up, or maybe growing up is a better word since we were too young to be in a band maybe, but you know, you're like adolescents and you're listening to NSYNC and blah, blah, blah. It's like, it seemed like there were less artists out there, and socials weren't really a thing yet. So the job of an artist was exactly what you just said. Like, obviously you had PR appearances, and if you were big enough to get on TV, you did other other things. Wow, I'm dying. But your job at the end of the day was to be an artist, to create songs that people love. How do you find, like, mentally, maybe both like mental health wise and just overall, like, how do you feel about it? Like the fact that now maybe artists are less just artists and more content producers as well. Like, it's you kind of have to be all in on everything to make it, really. Unless I guess maybe you're like upper echelon, but even then big artists are expected to be a present on TikTok, you know, or whatever. But
I mean, it's just like what you were saying. You're literally right before this listing off everything that you can and should be doing as an artist.
Yeah.
And it's a million things, you know.
Yeah.
It's a million things. Just socials alone, there's however many platforms, and now you guys are on Discord. And it's like that alone, there are people whose jobs are just social media.
Right.
You know, just TikTokers or just influencers on Instagram, whatever. And you're supposed to be that while also being a songwriter. And especially, like, I feel like there's a lot of similarities in how we kind of run our bands. Like, we're the songwriters, we're the producers, you know, the live aspect, and then, like you said, engaging in fans, and let's get a phone number, and let's do an email list, and then merch, and then it's like designing the merch, doing the merch drops, and all that stuff. So, I mean, I struggle with it a lot, you know. It's very like, if you aren't like on top of it, it just can roll you over.
Yeah.
And I think a big thing for me has been in the last year, especially, is like trying to get back to the fun of it, you know? And it's tough because we talk about all these things that we like have to do for the just like, I don't know, business aspect, I suppose, where it's like, even right now, we have our whole year and beyond planned out, right? So we're rolling out new music, which is going to wrap up into an album, which is then there's going to be a tour and like specific things. And it's like, it just gets to be a lot. So I don't know. It's a struggle. And I feel like I tap in and out, you know, like sometimes I'm really on top of it. And then sometimes, like right now when we're recording this, probably not when we're airing it, but I'm like not very on socials, you know. We kind of do our things that we have to do with our reels and Instagram stuff, but we're not like, we haven't, I mean, maybe we've hinted at new music, but like on my personal, I'll maybe post like a story a week. I'm mostly just off right now because I feel like I'm in very much in album finishing mode. And that's what's like been so fun for me. And I kind of had to have like, not an argument, but I kind of had to have a conversation with our management, and they're amazing, but where I was just like, I need to put all of myself into this because if I'm being dragged in this direction, that direction, and having meetings, and that kind of comes back to the delegation thing, because we started out January and had a bunch of meetings lined up with whoever, this, that, and the other. And after week one, I was like, we're not going to get this album done if every other day we have a meeting at 3 p.m. or
Totally.
drinks at 6 with this person. Like, it's just not going to get done.
Yeah.
And so I think I've definitely tried to, and when I say I really mean all three of us
Sure.
in the band, like, have tried to limit ourselves in everything that we do, to try and do like that better, you know? Because I feel like you just get spread too thin. Like, when I say you, I mean, like, I know I get spread too thin.
Yeah.
When it's like, we're doing all the stuff and it's just taking up some part of my subconscious that I want to be focused on making music. And I've really tried to rediscover what I like, what I love, and what kind of like recharges me, and just focus on that, even if some other things have to like suffer
Sure.
in the meantime. You
So
know?
so what's worked for you to like kind of go back to that headspace, or like how do you kind of exercise like going back to the fun of it for you? Like, what have you found?
I mean, I think it's a lot of things. Like, you guys, I don't know your experience, but for us, especially being signed super early on in this band's lifetime, we were kind of you get thrown into like this kind of gamut where we were sent out to LA a lot. We were there about 6 months a year. Wow. And we would be stacked up with, co-writes and writing doubles almost like 5 days a week, and then still working on Saturdays. And then you're in this dark studio at 2 a.m. with some jaded like dude who's like written some hits, and maybe it's maybe it's not an old dude, it's like a young hot writer, but they're like trying to crank out hits. And then it's like by week 1 you've written 12 songs and you hate all of them, And I think I've just tried to like redefine what success is to me, like, and a big piece of that, at least right now for myself, is just like happiness, like what makes me happy. And the thing that has like done it for me in the studio now to make it not feel like I'm clocking into work is like, we just jam. Like I miss the days when we would just play in our parents' basement for hours, trying to cover like Creed songs or something, you know what I mean? Like, and
I love it.
So yeah, I think creatively, like, it's been so fun. And this is the first time that I feel like I'm driving. Yesterday I was driving to the grocery store and I was just like listening to all the demos, being like, this feels so exciting to me. And I think it's been a little while because we were kind of in that world where we were like between label deals, still entertaining labels, like getting calls, things like that. And they have a specific definition of success and what they want. And they can ultimately like look similar when they get to a certain level, but the way that you get there is a little bit different, especially when it comes to like releasing music, And this is no shade on labels, but you're lucky, each single holds so much weight and you need to like push pre-saves and like they want a big, huge single and they're less concerned with the body of work, right? And for us, it was just like last year we only put out a couple of songs and they were all kind of one-off singles. And we were just like, we want to do an album and we're going to do it our way. And so we're really not co-writing with a lot of people that we don't know. The first, and I think we have like 12 songs right now. And of those, probably 9 are like just the 3 of us have written and we're producing all of it. And so that just feels fun again. It's not, I don't really know how else to explain it. So
yeah,
and
it
then
like feels like your version of that, like going back and just jamming and kind of like just figuring it out.
And obviously there's like we are co-writing. Like, we have certain co-writers that we love, that we've kind of like just worked with them more than trying a bunch of new people. Because that's so hard, dude. Like, it's so hard to be hopping in an Uber, showing up at somebody's studio in some random place that you've never met, and they've listened to your
2 hours, like just getting to know each other, and then
and you probably only have like 4 hours there in the first place, and they've probably listened to like your top 2 songs on Spotify, and they were like, okay, yeah, I get it, I know what they need to be. So I started this track, and you're like, oh God, like, and it's just a shittier version of, you know, some
your
song
top
that's
third
already
song,
released, that came out 3.5 years ago, and you're like, all right. So, totally. And again, I see both sides of it. Like, as someone who writes for other people, I understand how like difficult it can be to be thrown in like week 2 of somebody's month-long trip to Nashville or to LA. It's not easy, but so we definitely are using some of our favorite writers because it feels like we have a relationship. And so the deepest relationship we have is definitely with the three of us. So I can say something that is a non-musical term, and I'm like, this should sound more, you know, fluffy, whatever. And it's like, oh, like, and Joey knows like what I'm going for, or like that guitar part should be a little bit more, you know, angry or something. And it's like, we kind of have vocabulary with each other. And so, and that's, I think that in turn, now as we're doing all of the creative stuff, like talking about the videos, the Instagram posts, it's made me excited about that aspect again, because it's not just like, all right, well, what are we gonna, you know, put up on socials like this week and blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, everything kind of has like a vision and a purpose that we rediscovered in that like fun period, if you will.
It is interesting, and again, no shade on labels at all, probably just broader industry wide, where they see something work somewhere, and then it's just like, that's now the formula that's sought after. So it's like, we need one single, you guys remind me of XYZ artist, so I'm gonna put you with someone who has written a song in that vein, and they got whatever 50 million streams, and then now it's up to you to go to this complete stranger's studio and basically flash in a pan, recreate this like lightning in a bottle moment. And what's hard for us, just Steven and I, we did that. We had worked with a producer very, very front with a few songs, and the way the process was we sent stems of the demo, basically. He took them, beefed it all up, and then boom, we had like some magic. But a lot of the writing, a lot of the pre-production work was just us in a bedroom, you know. So then we were like, okay, well, the next logical step is to go try to see what happens in person. And while we had a lot of fun and learned a lot, it was a complete waste of time in terms of we got
there was nothing good,
and it was we love him as a person and all of that, but it was just like there was no real from our end real chemistry, and everything felt forced, and we were just like, we revere this person, and so you're like, you know, I'm just gonna go with whatever their gut is, but their gut did not line up with our gut at all. And so we left after like 3 days, and I just remember we had a really early morning wake. It was like a 3 a.m. to get to the flight at LAX at like, you know, 5:30 or something, or 6. And I remember calling our manager, and at the time we had another co-manager, Johnny, in London. So we're like, it's middle of the day for them, and I'm just texting them at like 3 a.m. going like, guys, I love you, but this was not good. Like, can we not do this again? You know, like, they're like, how are the songs sounding? And we're like, if we salvage anything from this, it'll be a miracle. And again, it wasn't terrible. It just wasn't at all what Joan was at that time, or even since. And so even kind of having collaborated with this person, even just a little bit remotely, even that didn't really work. And that's not to say it doesn't work and it can't work, but kind of it feels like being thrown like throwing paint on a wall and just hoping something sticks. I would just rather do that with you or bring you, someone that we've written with, someone that we trust. We know your ear, we know your melodic sensibilities, we know your songwriting, just like a commonality. And we're at least going to get something good out of it. It might not be a smash. It might not be Adele's next single, but like we're going to all feel really good about it. And I trust those instincts more than some random guy or girl that, I'm just going off like one accolade that they did. And so I don't know, it starts to feel like the industry is just like, this worked, so it'll work here too. And it's like, not necessarily. Like everyone's process is so different. So anyway,
and it's tough too, because I really do see it from all angles. And a lot of my frequent collaborators are people that I met that way. So I can't necessarily bash that.
Right.
And I'm not trying to bash that. I think just for Nightly and where we are and where we're trying to go, it was important for the three of us to kind of reconnect and rediscover our like love. And a big thing too that I'm trying to do is like let go of results, because like you really can't control the end product anyways. I've been in situations where we're at the biggest label in the world and the president of A&R is saying like, this is a smash. And, and it's not. And then the one that like nobody cared about and didn't even want to be released ends up performing the best. So it's like, I also think if you're making music for that reason, it's like we all of course we want to grow. We want to write the best songs we can, and like we want people to connect to them because we connect with them hopefully. But I think just making your best work and like leaving the results up to the universe is something that I've been trying to be okay with, because at the end of the day, you can't control what other people like or don't like, but you can control what you like. So if it's going to have the same chance of being, successful or not, then I'd rather it be something that I just love and I'm playing in the car on the grocery store, drive to the grocery store and want to sing on tour 500 times over the next, couple of years. So focusing more on that, which we always have to some degree. I just think sometimes there's like outside pressures, outside ears, like we need a tempo, we need a this, we need a sync song, we need a whatever. And even if you're like, whatever, I don't care, like enough of that gets inside your head and then you just start thinking about it subtly, and I think the best some of the best songwriters, collaborators for me have been the ones who maybe understand the artist, what they've done or whatever, and they like can just maybe introduce like a new ingredient or a new angle or a new like something that's just stirs it up a little bit. Because I love those moments where you're like, oh, we haven't had like just a piano in a song, or we haven't done like a 6/8 song, like whatever like the small thing is. It's like, because I think sometimes we get this idea of like, this is what Joan is, this is what Nightly is, and we paint ourselves into this thing where it's like the best artists can evolve, and that evolution, I think whatever like gets to that spark is a trait that like some of the best producers, co-writers, artists possess, is like, and it takes experimentation. So it's tough to say like, you could go out to LA for 2 weeks and not come back with anything, but you could be so pissed off when you get back that you write something that ends up like sparking that change anyways. And you're like,
totally,
so it's really tough to say, but I am definitely so much more precious with my time right now.
Right.
And if something is draining me, then I kind of cut it out. I'm trying to eliminate that. Like, because again, we can't control the results. So I want to at least enjoy the process and like the product that we're making.
Yeah.
So I would rather write a song that like isn't I'm trying to think if I actually mean this. I think I do, but it's like I would rather write a song and like enjoy it, and it's not, than like write a song in a situation that I hate with people that I hate, and it ends up like, you know, becoming more successful or something. That's just the place I'm in right now.
Yeah. That's interesting. I've actually kind of reflected on like when we made the album, like basically from like April until September of last year was kind of our 6-month whatever block that we did. And I've just been like reflecting on that and looking back so fondly on that time, and just like that being like, we've never really done that process before where we just like write as many songs as possible, throw everything at the wall, see what sticks for us, see what makes sense as an album. Like it was just a lot of new parts of the process for us, like creatively, and just like felt so good and fresh and cool. And on one hand, I've like been looking back on those memories like so fondly, but also been thinking like, do I love these songs like way more? Obviously I love them as songs, but do I love those songs because we made those songs in my favorite times, like creatively too? And I don't think that's anything to like discount, you know, like if that is the case, like that's a big part of me in my life that like I really enjoyed, and like it was just so good for me as an artist to do. And so it's like, even if the songs don't do what every artist hopes they do, like for your career or whatever, like I'm so proud of that like time, you know, and those songs that we came out of with that. So I don't know, that's an interesting thought too. Like you have memories that are associated with every song that you write, like who you wrote with and what environment what the environment was around those songs. So like that's just as important almost like for you as kind of the writer and artist too.
Well, and I think I don't think it does discount it, because I think the intentionality that we put in those 6 months shows. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't think someone could listen to the album and go, not my cup of tea. That's fine. You know, it's not, obviously not everything is not for everyone, but
but I
don't think you. Yeah, what'd you say?
I said, yeah, but you're an idiot.
But I do think you'd be hard pressed to find someone, even if it's not their cup of tea, that would not listen to it and go, a lot of attention to detail was put into this, which should reflect intentionality, which should reflect time, which should reflect our heart behind, you know. So it's like, I think all that stuff does show, and it that's probably why I prefer, I've kind of come full circle on this. I loved albums growing up, and then like everything switched to so single based. So I kind of fell into that, and I was just like scanning through who's this person's newest single, blah, blah, blah. Now I'm kind of re-fallen back in love with albums, because like you were saying, John, and you, Stephen, like if you're able as an artist to just kind of hunker down, put your head down, and just work on a body of something, a catalog of songs, not over 5 years. I mean, some people I guess take years, but even just 6 months, whatever. And though you're doing other content type things, that's the main objective. It just like makes for a better product for us. I'm assuming for you too, of just like, you're able to kind of put blinders on some other things and go, I'm not going to worry about that stuff. I want to make the best damn album I can make. How do we do that? I need time to do that. I need like intentional time. And anyway, all that to say, I think the intentionality shows, and I'd add as an aside, John, from us to you, like you've been, I'm thinking back in my head, aside from us collaborating together, our most collaborative process, like writing wise. And one of the reasons I love writing with you is, I feel like we have similar melodic sensibilities, but you always bring some like twist to a melody that I'm like, I wouldn't have thought of that. Like, you know what I'm saying? And so I love having your brain on our songs, because all the songs we've written together, even ones that aren't released yet, like they're genuinely some of my favorite of ours. And so kudos to you. When we wrote, for the listener, John's written several songs with us. We've written on the new album, Nervous and Don't Want to Be Your Friend specifically. He brought in a new pal for us, Emily Falvey. And even just that moment, I think if I remember the session correctly, I had one hook and it was the, you make me nervous, which I was hearing as the end of the phrase, like that'd be like the hook into like a turn. And then all of a sudden, like you and Emily just like looked at each other and were like, go. And it's like within 5 minutes we had a chorus and I was like, holy crap, that was so fast. So I love that. I love reflecting on that trip to Nashville and those sessions with you guys. Cause that was a blast, like getting to see, you know, we've done Zooms and like we know each other and stuff, but getting to see you like in the flesh, in person, real time processing and how kind of your brain just starts spinning was cool. I think we learned a lot on that trip just to see you guys work. And anyway, huge fan of you is what I'm trying to say. So
thanks, man. Yeah, Emily's incredible. She's just an incredible songwriter and human. And she's really good. She's one of my people. I'd say there's like 3 people in Nashville that I work with on a somewhat regular basis.
Yeah.
Emily's like the fixer. Like that's like how I think of her, is like I'll get stuck somewhere or I'll have an idea or I'll have a chorus and then I'm stuck and I'm like, all right, like literally did it last week. We were working on this idea for a long time and I was just like, Emily, what are you doing right now? She's like, oh, I'm just at, Soho, whatever. Like, I was like, can you come over right now?
She's always at Soho.
I'll be there in 15. I was like, yeah. So, yeah, she's incredible. But I think that's the thing. Like, that's when collaboration is beautiful, is when you're like, oh, I wouldn't have thought of, my melodic brain wouldn't have thought of that.
Yeah.
And that's when it's great, because it's kind of just taking you like outside of your own box for a second. And then it can be such like a valuable learning experience. Like I've started to think of songwriting as like, excuse me, like, it's almost like you have like a tool belt or something, and you can work with somebody and learn something, and then you just add that to your tool belt, you know? Mm-hmm. Like, I'm trying to think of like a good example where it's like, oh, what if it's a drop chorus where the chorus goes down and you had never done that before, and you're like, oh, okay, so now if I ever get to this problem again, I can try that, and that's my hammer. Or it's like, what about a non-lyrical hook where it's like a la or a na or whatever, and you're like, oh, that just opened my mind. Or what about, and then you kind of like, okay, that's my like screwdriver. And then it's like, then you kind of, when you get to a problem, you have like more tools in your tool belt to kind of figure out the puzzle of what the song should be. And that's something that I feel like can only be learned through collaboration, because you meet somebody and they teach you something, or you like observe something and you're like, oh, that's interesting, I can use that in the future. And then you just kind of have a broader vocabulary. And so all my favorite collaborators in Nashville have that. Seth Ennis is amazing. Andrew Stolzing and Emily Falvey, those are probably like my 3 in Nashville. And then I have some people I love in LA. But I think there was one other thing I was going to say, because we were talking about like making the album, and the kind of like catharsis is in making music is that we are artists, and we're just doing it to some degree for ourselves. Like, you have to be, right? So it's like, I don't know. I've tried to just do it for myself, like me and the guys a little bit more. And again, just letting go of like whatever results. Because if you want to make money, like, I would get a different job, right. If I was that's not the reason. Sure, it's great to like do it full time, and I'm super grateful, but I never want that to be like at the forefront of anything that I do for, Nightly or whatever. I just like, I love songwriting so much,
Yeah.
you know, and I know you guys do too, because it's like nobody would do it for this long, like unless they, you know, unless they loved it. And so
Totally.
just having like to consciously remind myself, is like even the first song, which by the time this airs will be out, it's like, I don't know if people are going to like it. It's a different thing. It's not what we kind of have songs that I think would be more expected to be first that are on the album.
Yeah.
But it was like, we just wanted to do it because we loved it. And I don't know, I love making those types of decisions again, because we're not asking for the opinion of a label right now or this or that.
Yeah.
It's just what we want to do. And that's like it's kind of invigorated me a little bit and given me a newfound excitement for stuff, and not comparing like yourself to somebody else, to what this band is doing or that artist is doing. It's like, who cares, man? Like, we're going to put like the song, again, it'll be out by the time this is out, but it's like, it's a 6/8 piano ballad that's like 66 BPM, you know, and everybody's
awesome.
like,
I love it.
Banger first, you know, it's like, it's gotta be just the crowd banger. And we were just like, I don't know. People might hate this, or might be like, what? Mm-hmm. But I don't know. That's like exciting to me.
Yeah. But it's also cool to like show fans and listeners like kind of like where you are as artists too, as like a first offering too, just to be like, this, it's obvious that we don't care as much about this, I think, you know, like doing something like that. You're basically saying like, this is what we want you to listen to, and this is like really important to us. So like, come along with us, kind of thing. Like I don't know. At the end of the day, like, are there bangers anymore? You know, it's like
right.
People love just, I don't know. It's like I think people really love songwriting more than ever now, and like just like what words are being said and what meaning, you know, what meaning is in the song. So like maybe that's the banger, you know, like maybe, you know, so you never know. And I think that's really cool, and kudos for y'all, like, to just do that and like do what you want and like do what's fun for you. You know, that's huge.
Who do you trust the most? Like, if I'm a fan of an artist, and I would hope I'd say this if I wasn't doing this as a career, but like The Weeknd, let's just throw out like whatever he puts out, I'm just gonna be like, that's what he wanted to do. He has a label, all that, but that represents him automatically. So it's like, who do you trust most when you listen to an artist? That what you're hearing, like, is that the label that you're hearing? No, it's the artist. It's the artist's voice. Is it the fans that you're hearing? No, should be the artist's voice you're hearing. So I'm just kind of like, sometimes even with the tension, and we probably don't get it as much at our level, like respectively where you guys are and where we are, but I'm assuming where you have like seemingly rabid fan bases, and like K-pop, for instance, where you just like crazy numbers and, you know, all that, like there's millions of people, all this stuff. It's like, they probably feel a pressure more than we do to please fans to a certain degree. And while I want fans to like what we're doing, I'm also like, you've liked us for the last 5 years, unless we just took a crazy turn, like you're more than likely going to at least somewhat like what we're doing. So like, just trust that the artistry is still here. Not to say that you can't lose that. And there's definitely been, you know, the sophomore album slump, and, you know, artists that do kind of get lost and do something so left of center that it kind of loses everybody. I get that, but you guys aren't doing that. We're not doing that. Like, we're still innately Joan. You guys are still innately Nightly. Your voice, my voice, his voice, like all this stuff. I'm like, I just kind of want to sometimes look at industry people and honestly fans sometimes and go like, just trust us. Like, the Joan you fell in love with, the Nightly you fell in love with, still us. We might throw a curveball here and there, but we need that, you know, and I think ultimately the fans need it because it's going to keep us evolving and giving them good music. But it does raise an interesting question about like intent and how much what we do, like you said, is for us and just scratching an itch of artistry and songwriting and a desire we have, and how much of it is like commercial what's the word I'm looking for? Like commercial fulfillment or fan fulfillment, or because we love our fans and we're very interactive with our fans and very personal, and we have our Jonely fans, and like we can really like dive deep with them. But at the end of the day, am I writing a song for them or am I writing a song for us?
Yeah.
Sometimes those lines are blurred. Like I don't always know, but I'm with you. I'm trying to get back to that simple, like the Joan you fell in love with. We were just in a bedroom, not you, metaphorically you. Maybe
I would
you.
love to be in a bedroom with you guys.
Okay. Hey, come over anytime, buddy. But that Joan I guess this is my point. That Joan you fell in love with was two guys right out of college, just trying stuff in our bedroom studio, and we struck some sort of magic together. We're just trying to continue that. And so some of the pressure from industry fans, I'm like, don't try to force a product. Like, trust us. Like, we've had this whole time. We're going to continue just growing and getting better. And so I think that frustrates me sometimes from like an industry standpoint of like, which luckily we have been luckily in the label we're with, Photo Finish, and probably mostly the slew of labels and people we've worked with do trust us. Like, they've seen results from the level that we've been at and gone, okay, these guys visually know what they're doing. They've got a brand, they've got a look, they've got a sound. We figured that out. But I do feel for artists who don't get that same luxury and are kind of like put into a box pretty early, and then don't have a good chance to like break out of it, I guess. So anyway.
Yeah, definitely. I think for us, we just everybody has their own unique story, but for us, without like getting too long-winded about it, but yeah, we were signed very early off of our first song. We had made an EP, and it was the same kind of thing. We just found this guy who we were set up on a random session with, made some music, ended up really making some magical things together. Is our friend Keith Barron. He's out in LA, and Keith had no real producing experience. I mean, he had been producing and he had done some like things, but like nothing crazy. And again, we were nobody, and we made this EP that we loved, and that was kind of the creation of the sound. And then we got signed very early off of our first song, and the label was like, okay, now you're gonna go work with fill in the blank A-lister producers, blah, blah, blah. And it was a little bit of a disruption of the magic that like the four of us had made, and that's one thing that I've never really understood, is that something works, it goes viral, whatever, it gets to the point where, labels are interested in signing it. And then they're like, okay, let's switch it up, and you're like
right off the bat,
this literally hasn't nothing started yet,
Yeah.
And so I never understood that, and whatever, I hold no ill will towards anyone at any label or anything like that, but I've seen it so many times, dude. I've seen it through us, and then so many new artists that I've worked with in Nashville and LA. And it's like, I won't say any names, but it's like, oh yeah, me and my roommate, like we created, this song, and it ended up being like a big kind of Spotify moment. And then it's like, now we don't work together anymore, and I'm in with fill in the blank, big producer and all that stuff. And it's just like, that just doesn't make a ton of sense to me.
The loyalty factor is not as prevalent, which, I mean, some of that's probably climbing the ladder, and I get the human nature behind it.
Yeah, I think it's less, I don't say that as like an artist problem, because I've been in that situation. You just assume, okay, this is, when you're talking about like, okay, this is the label that signed all these huge bands, and they're talking about, oh yeah, we should get you writing in with Imagine Dragons guys, and we should get you, drummer from the 1975, like you guys get in this, and you're like, oh my God, like these people know what they're doing. They're making, huge artists and stuff. And they're like, you're like, yeah, for sure. And, but I think sometimes there's magic, and you see, like you're seeing it right now with Olivia Rodrigo and her guy, where it's
Yeah.
like, or Billy and Phineas is like a
Yeah.
great example, right? Where it's like, I can almost guarantee you that they have tried at some point, maybe it was in the beginning of her career, with the Ocean Eyes, like when that moment was happening, to get Billy in with the biggest producers in the world, right?
Yeah.
And like, kudos to her for sticking her ground and being like, no, like, this is my vibe. And I think even if that wasn't successful, she would have been like, this is how I want to spend my time. This is who I want to make music with.
Yeah.
And that's just like more the place that I'm in now. And I think when I was, again, just young, like did not come from money or anything, was working 2 jobs, sleeping in a house with 5 dudes, like, you know, frat house situation, and somebody is throwing around big money and huge collaborators, and your dream is to do that. It's like, yeah, okay, we'll not work with Keith for like the next thing.
Yeah.
Right.
And then, you know, and you're working with people who like are amazing at what they do, but there's something to be said about like sticking up for that magic and like protecting it at least. And I'm not saying don't experiment, like experiment, but anyways, sorry, I've probably just been rattling off for way
That's
too
been
long
our
about
MO
that.
from day one.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's key. How this is kind of switching, not switching topics, but switching lanes a little bit. But how's like y'all's dynamic as a band normally work? Like, is there someone that starts songs? Do y'all start all songs kind of together, or who's like the producer role? How does that work with y'all?
It's definitely a little bit different, I think, each time, but also each like year of the band. I think it's been different, but for the most part, it's the 3 of us in the room, and everybody is changing positions. You know, sometimes it's Nick on the computer. I'd say most of the time it's Joey on computer. And when I say that, I mean like producing, but
He's just typing.
yeah,
He's like,
yeah.
pop, 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 pop.
He's in ChatGPT being like, nightly song,
Right.
you
In
know.
the style of swing.
Yeah. But this album cycle specifically was like almost every song was started with the 3 of us holding instruments, playing in a room, no computer involved type of a situation.
Yeah.
Almost, I'm trying to think if there was any songs that weren't that way. So that's been this time, and then we'll find parts that we love, and then we'll get into the computer, track them out, and melodies, you know, and stuff. And then what I've been loving is we'll do that. If I have something like immediately, I'll get it out. But a lot of times I like to let my subconscious work if it's not coming right away. So we'll kind of a basic structure of the song. Then I'll go home and just sit down at my computer, play the track, record vocals, write lyrics, and then send that to the guys at like, they're like in bed sometimes by the time I'm done, or I'll send it the next morning and be like, what do you think of this? And so that's how most of them have been. It's been very like jam, like a lot of jamming, not as much like we're laying in this progression and like building loops where we've kind of done that way in the past for some songs. This is like, there's a lot of songs where there's not really like loopy things in there. It's like mostly real instruments. Still like a song or two is like that, but so yeah. And then there'll be times too, like I spend a lot of time outside of just when we're together writing stuff. So even if we write a song during the day, I'll come home and write something at night and then send it to them, and then we'll kind of like work it up from there.
Yeah.
So those are like the main ways.
How do you find, and I may word this differently for you, but you're a writer, like you're writing songs with other artists, i.e. guys like us. and then you're also writing stuff for your own project. How do you segment that in your brain? Are you like, tonight you're sitting with your acoustic and you come up with an idea? Are you like, this is sick, I need to save this for Nightly? Or is it, I hear Alan's voice on this for Joan, let me throw this chorus to the, you know what I'm saying? Like, how do you do you segment those things? Or is it just kind of like there's one big pot and whatever feels right in the moment, you're just like, trust that it's going to land where it needs to? Or how does that?
It depends. Like, so January and most of February, at least the first half, was like just Nightly in my mind. Like I canceled all other sessions. So it was always day and night, like whatever. And I only just started writing for other artists in kind of like pandemic times. It might have even been 21. It was either like late 2020 or early 21. So I think I'm still, when I say I come back home, even when we're not making an album, I'd say we generally work during the day. That just works best for the guys. But I'm like not a morning person. I'm more of like a night person. I love making music like some people love skateboarding, like to me it's like that. And so I come home and I just make more music. And sometimes it's just purely experimental, like something that would never be Nightly, I might just make a loop that's like a trap beat or like a country thing or something. So in that case, it's obvious when it's not like for Nightly.
Mm-hmm. You guys aren't going country? Country trap's not your new?
Not yet. No.
Okay.
I'll never
I'm
say
waiting
never,
for that album.
Honestly, it would bang pretty hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then I will say I am generally working with the artist if I'm working with another artist, So there have been a few cases where it's been like a big artist, and so I'll need to like prepare. And so then I'll be like thinking about ideas for that artist or things to bring in. But most of the time when I'm jamming, I'm like thinking of stuff that I want to say. And sometimes it could be like too close to a song that I've written before, subject matter wise, and then that's when I might like send it to my publisher and be like, hey, I just wrote this, like what do you think? Kind of a thing. There's not a lot of times where I sit down and think like, I'm going to try and write a song for Khalid or something like that. Right, unless they like I've been asked from my publisher for a song for a specific artist. And then again, I'm like obviously going into it thinking about them. So
yeah, cool. I was just curious how, because I know when we started collabing together, it felt like you were definitely in like session mode, like doing more than just us, like, so it's tough for me sometimes to segment, like if I'm helping produce someone else's song or album or whatever, but I'm also in Joan land always, it never stops. Like sometimes I find trouble, like, okay, here's this melody. Have I already used it over here on that Joan song or that unreleased idea that's sitting on Dropbox? And is it close enough? Can I tweak it enough to where it still works over here? And so sometimes my brain, like, and it's probably just a bad memory, but it's kind of tough for me to like keep everything,
For me,
separated.
it's like one actually recharges the other. I find when I'm doing one thing all the time, I get like a little bit burnt out. Like, even on the Nightly side, like we got to a point where, like I said, we have like, we have way more ideas, but we have like 12 things that we love. And we're just like, we're all kind of at that point where we're like, enough stuff is written that we love that we're going to start producing stuff out. Mm-hmm. And because I think we are a little like, we need 2 weeks off of writing for Nightly because we've said so much. And it's like, you only have so much to say about your artist project. But for me, when I'm doing both, when I'm writing for other people, it's like, I don't know, it's like working out like your chest muscles if you only ever do that, then like A, your chest isn't going to get bigger because it never rests, but B, like there are other complementary muscles that will actually help you grow in strength. So it's like, it'd be like, you know, a leg day and then like an upper body day. Like that's how it feels to me, is one kind of recharges the other.
Yeah.
When I think
feel
of
the
you, I
most-
think of huge chest.
Yeah,
So
thank you.
That makes a lot of sense.
I can tell you've been really focusing on complementary muscles as well, too, though. You just really got the whole package.
You do. Congrats.
Thank you.
What were we
Appreciate it.
talking about?
Yeah, I don't remember. Started thinking about your chest. My bad.
No, yeah. That's
Like
cool to
I get
hear.
the most
mean,
I get the most energy when I've just written an idea that I love.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
nothing
Yeah.
makes me want to write another song more than when I just wrote something, which like doesn't really make sense. I don't know how
totally.
other people work, but if I've had a shit day of writing and I've burned through 3 ideas that all suck, I'm like, I don't want to write almost, you
100%,
know?
yeah.
But when I'm like, I just wrote something last night that's amazing, I come in and I feel pumped. Like,
Yeah.
I'll be like, all right, let's write another idea. Like, let's go, let's keep going, you know? And most people, that's not the case. They're just like, you know, and I've presented that idea a few times. That was like what happened with the Valley song. Was I was like, let's just take, we were working for like 2 days or something like that, and we had written some other stuff. And I was like, let's just take 30 minutes and try and write a song in 30 minutes. If we can't, we turn the computer off, we're done. And that's when we wrote their song. But so I love that. To me, it's just like riding that wave of momentum as far as you can ride it. Because I think that like so much of it is like mental and getting out of your own way. I think when you sit there and you're like trying really hard to write and every word is like a struggle, you have to like get that out of the way and just start thinking less, and then stuff just starts flowing
well,
more.
and
So
that was a great point too about letting your subconscious work, and like that's encouraging for me to hear, because that I think whenever, especially when we did kind of a week or week and a half, I can't remember, in Nashville, and we tried to do as many sessions as we could then.
2 days.
Yeah, and it was like there's a part of it where it's cool and it's like getting reps in, where it's like a lot of those writers or a lot of sessions you're in, it seems like you need the song done in that session. Right. And like,
yeah,
you know, it feels like almost like just trying to catch as much magic as you can, and literally like trying to put, you know, the end note on the song, like in that 2-hour session or whatever you're doing. For me, in my brain, I have a really hard time with that, especially lyrically, and especially like thinking through like like whatever project, you know, we're working on. And so that was like cool for me to see, and it was cool for me to try and like get reps in, but I'm very much someone that like my best ideas come at like whenever I can't fall asleep at night, and I'm just like looking and staring up at the ceiling, and I'm like, I can't sleep. What about this idea? And what about this lyric on this second verse or whatever? And like, I don't know, it's just, it's cool to hear that you kind of work that way too, is like not necessarily needing to get stuff done in the session with Nightly, like during the day. Like you can go home and like kind of let your brain work and you know, finish them out and like let it come naturally, rather than just like, because cool stuff can come like forcing in the session, or not forcing, but you know what I mean? Like spending time in the session, but some of the best stuff comes, you know, in the shower, just like randomly too. So it's like, I don't know, it's important to make sure you're trying to like literally let it just work all the time and catch it whenever it's hitting. And
yeah, there's definitely positives to both. Like
totally.
Sometimes for myself, I don't, unless like, again, the wave is still there and we're all still feeling super like everybody's dancing around the room and like we're excited, and what about this, and what about this, and how about this lyric, like whatever. Like I'll ride that as long as it lasts, but as soon as that goes away, I don't like putting in lyrics as like placeholders. Well, I should say, yeah, I guess I don't like forcing it in the moment. You know, it's
Yeah.
fine to have something that is like a placeholder if it's just like gibberish or whatever,
Yeah.
or like it gets me to where I want to go. Like if I'm just like, I can rewrite, especially with like verses and stuff, but I would rather just leave with a blank track than have a song that I think is like shit, you know?
Yeah.
Because then I probably won't go back and edit it, or if I do, it's going to be really hard for me to get this other idea that I know I don't like out of my head, and I'm just gonna like automatically look at that song as like I don't love it, you know, as much as like when we were first creating it. So
Right.
I'm fine with either way, you know.
Yeah.
I'm fine with finishing something in the room, or if it just feels like every song on this album has started with just verse, chorus, and then that gives me space to still like think about the second verse. I'm a big like first verse, chorus person.
It's exactly how we write.
Yeah.
We write.
Yeah.
We may have done it. I think there's a song we're finishing with you that isn't finished yet, but I think we have verse, chorus, and maybe some ideas on the second verse. But I think it had been like 2 hours, and we were all just kind of like, this feels like a really good place to stop. Like anything past this might feel forced. We can finish it later, you know, like, or we can do another set, whatever. And so it is like, I think of one funny story with a writer that I will not name, but an example of getting bogged down on details that don't matter in the moment. We wrote like a kind of the same thing, verse and chorus, and it wasn't really our style, and it was just like a fun kind of exercise. And granted, there was whiskey involved, so I think everyone was feeling maybe a tad loose and having fun. And there was he wanted to write or do a demo vocal, and so I'm like at my computer with none of my gear. It's just like my computer and my interface, and I'm in this writing room in Nashville and whatever. And he's like specifically telling me each frequency that I need to carve out for his vocal to do that, and like it was getting in the minutia, and it's like 11 p.m. and I'm just like, bro, I'm just ready to go home, man. Like I don't.
The song was written. We had a work tape and everything. It was just like, we're like trying to like finish this whole thing.
Yeah. I'm like, will you just get your vocal down, sing it? You sound awesome. I promise I'll make it sound good. But like next week, like I don't want to do this right now. So it's even that minutia. I'm just kind of like, some people that's his world. He loves like leaving with like a really polished demo. And I'm like, sure, I like that. But if it's not happening and it's midnight, I'm like, I'm not staying up till 3 to make sure your vocal sounds good. You know, I'm just like, that's not my world that I'm living in. So
everybody's so different. I saw some interview with Matty Healy where he said something that was like so interesting to me, where it was like he made it sound like they write the album and he just has nonsense lyrics throughout like the whole album, and then he goes away somewhere for like a month and writes all the lyrics, and the album's like done. You know, not done, but it's they have like all these songs with just no words. And I was like, I don't know if that's actually true, but that's kind of what he made it sound like in the interview. And so everybody I think it's just like what works for you, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
Like I try to avoid the wall at all costs. So whatever tricks I know about myself to get away from just the wall, where it's just like everybody's staring and you're like, I don't know, maybe crazy baby, like, and you're just like whatever I can do to get away from that.
Yeah.
So I'll just try and avoid that, you know? And like part of that is like being not overthinking in the moment when it's flowing. Get it out even if the lyrics suck, but when it's flowing. Because there are some people that literally will sit there and try and get every word of the verse perfect before you've even like written the idea. And again, if that works for you, that's fine. For me, I know I can rewrite any lyric. I just want to like get the general idea out as fast as possible.
100%.
And it's like, you know, we've worked together and you're like, well, maybe not this, but something like this. And blah, blah, blah. And then you're like, oh, cool. And then you go back and you're like, oh, okay, we could make that part better. But you never get to the point of we can make that part better if we didn't get to the original thing, you know?
Totally.
So,
and the unprocessed, kind of raw, unfiltered ideas spark for you maybe a whole new line that wouldn't have come out otherwise had Steven not thrown out that against the wall or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%, 100%. It's all about like unblocking. But
when I feel like that's like everyone's personal preference thing, but also like personality differences. Like some people are nervous to do that. They're like, well, I don't, like if they're projecting like, I like this artist a lot that I'm working with or this writer and I want to like impress them. It's like, I don't want to throw out a crap idea if, blah, 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 which I wish everyone's guard could just be gone and down and everyone just be, hey, there's an equal level playing field here in this room for this next 3 hours. We just want to make the best song or songs that we can. I've definitely felt that to where I'm lyrical to an extent, but like Steven, that's way more his brain than mine. And so like, I get bogged down on like, I want to make this melody like perfect.
Right.
And so I'm thinking like, how can it's not like hitting my brain quite right yet. Like it's not hooky enough. And then by that time he's already thought of an entire narrative for the song. And so that works well for us because we can kind of segment our brains and go, he knows I'm working on a melodic shift here. I know that he's trying to write that third line, and by the end of it, we have like a product. And then, like you said, you can edit all the way up to recording that final vocal. I mean, like honestly, and we luckily our buddy Maddie mixes all of our stuff. I can literally send him a line the day he's mixing, like, hey man, we've been unsettled on this second verse line. Will you pop this in real quick? And he's like, yep, no problem. So that helps to work with people that love you and won't get pissed when you do that. But, but it's all editable for sure. So anyway.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, sick. How long have we been talking?
Too long.
4 hours?
Too long.
Man, I don't really know what else to say. I thanks for taking your time out of your day to chat with us. Basically part of what we like have loved, just like meeting other artists and everything, is just like exactly that, like finding out their process and like seeing what like kind of sparks, joy, like making music and like the creative process and everything. And so we just really love hearing about it and obviously love you and like a big fan of yours. So thanks for taking your time out and chatting with us.
I love you boys. You're both very beautiful and very talented, and I'm very excited for your album and all the things. I'm lucky to be your friend, so thanks for having me.
We're lucky to be
so
yours.
Sweet.
Wow, I'm gonna cry now.
I can't wait to see what comes for Nightly this year and years beyond. And awesome. We're rooting you on, buddy.
That's right.
Thank you,
Love
boys.
you, bud.
All right, have a great day, guys.
All right.
Bye.
Thank you.